Indeed, indeed. Okay, so this is book club, but also big conversations between Sally and myself. So, hi Sally, how's it going?
Going good, Joe. How are you?
Fantastic. We have treated ourselves to reading one of Dolores Cannon's books, Legacy from the Stars. Wow. Wow, wow. The one book that you can seriously binge read in a weekend and get profound wisdom and insight and information, which, whew, amazing.
Yeah. Um, I read it. It's about, I think, 326 pages. I read it in 2 days and it was just so amazing information, so jam-packed, and I loved it.
Mm, mm. Love, love times a trillion. Now, I have all of her physical books, and then I have them also on PDF, which I have a PDF reader. Um, and I feel naughty even saying that I have some PDF copies of her books.
So I actually read it, just to let everybody know too. I read it through Telegram. She has her PDF books on Telegram for free. And if you just search under the name Dolores Cannon, you will find them there. So just FYI.
So I have my laptop has this. It's not even an app. It's just this program. When you open up a PDF, it has an option to read out loud. I also have an app on my phone, but my computer does it for me. So I kind of it makes it into an audio, and I like to listen to it really fast. And so I got to listen to it within a day myself. Um, I did start picking up the book. When I start picking up the book and reading it, there were some really striking things that was incredibly remarkable for me. When I was listening, when I was reading into what Dolores was saying, it was echoing literally sentences and sentences and sentences and content and information from our own sessions. And it's like, whoa, when I haven't I've just finished reading this book myself. I think I flipped through it. But what I accidentally did is, so I've got all her books, they're all together. And I have the book, The Legend of Star Crash. And I mixed up The Legend of Star Crash with the title Legacy from the Stars. I know that for some people that's like very obvious different books, but for me, when I was scrolling through visually and having a look at the books, I mistakenly thought that this book, Legacy from the Stars, was The Legend of Star Crash, which doesn't make any sense when I say it now. But just for me, it's perfect timing for me to read this book myself. And my goodness, um, she starts off saying that through all her years of information collecting, it's all consistent. All consistent. Doesn't matter what country and what client, when she talks to the oversoul, when she talks to the subconsciouses, the master guides, whatever you want to name them, it's still consistent information of history, of events, and it is beyond a coincidence. It is incredible, incredible. And those people that want proof, I would say Dolores Cannon's books for me show proof because Legacy from the Stars is a book that was published in 1996, which is quite some years ago. And I know, I mean, I don't know if I think I may have known one client that had read this book. And it just blows my mind once again that all of my clients who don't even haven't even read her books are still getting the same information. Um, I'm done seeking proof and confirmation personally myself, but getting confirmation is just such a blessing and a gift. It strengthens my faith, and There's so much I have to say about this. So, what was striking for you as you were perusing the information?
Um, I really just thought all of it actually was like so interesting. And the thing that surprised me actually was when I was reading it, I was starting to get emotional. And I don't know why, but it was almost like I was getting a glimpse into like I know time is not really considered a thing in most dimensions, but it was almost like it almost sounded familiar. I can't even explain it. It's the first time I ever read this book, and just hearing about like, for example, when one of the clients went back to Earth, and it was like the earliest forms of life, and just starting out with just like the prehistory and everything there, and then um, going through different types of reincarnations. It just felt so emotional. I don't even know how to describe it. And then the fact that we're so close to our star family, and they were mentioning like we always have been them, they are us. It's just I don't know. It brought up some kind of emotional reaction in me.
I get emotional too when I'm reading Dolores's books because I can feel her energy and her hard work and her diligence and her, it's not a desperation, but it's her very strong desire for people to read her information. Not because she wants notoriety, being an author, or for being the provider and the seeker of this wisdom and information, but because the information is universal, the information should be shared and it should be having full access to anyone that is seeking this information. And I can feel her. It's making me want to cry now. I'm not going to cry this time. But it's like if people were less resistant to new information, they would be able to have open hearts to her information, which is the universal information, which is higher dimensional information. And this would be able to give them the answers to who they are and would really help them understand what the purpose of these 3D lives are. And it's like she did so much hard work. Can you imagine doing 45 years of diligent hard work, getting this information, the sacred knowledge out there? They are cheap books, they're not, fully expensive. And, they're very old. You could probably pick them up from secondhand bookstores at this point, or, even finding them online for free. But the information mustn't be looked over as free in terms of the information so valuable. It's priceless. It is truly priceless. And we need to be having more conversations about the content because this helps us find back the truth. We have been told so much nonsense and rubbish, and her information is so truthful. And when I was listening and reading the book, and it was reminding me of so many sessions I've had with very similar life experiences. And it really just put me on a reflective journey of my own, with all my personal sessions with clients, and even my own personal session as being a client. So I just found it so extraordinary. And what blew my mind was one of the chapters literally was talking about our current timeline. And I just thought, this was before she was really getting much information. Or maybe this was the start of the dimensional shift. So it talks about a shift in dimensions, and that there are ships that need to evacuate, and that there was an example of a planet that needed to be evacuated, and they didn't, those occupants of the planet that needed to be evacuated didn't want to trust and didn't want to go with those who are helping shift them off the planet, because to be convinced to go onto the ships meant you had to lose and leave your bodies behind. And for me, it blows my mind, because this is why a lot of people, including practitioners, can't fully step into the information that we get from sessions and what even Dolores has shared throughout many of her own books, is that the shift into 5D is a physical shift, and we change our bodies. We have the evolutional jump of bodies. We transform our bodies. And many people are so afraid of losing the 3D bodies, they will dismiss and be closed-minded to any other information because of that scary fact. And we've been told many times that that's kind of like the last thing people will be able to overcome in their minds is losing the bodies.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're basically saying it's important to, and the way I was seeing it, it was almost like trusting and knowing that they call them the watchers, but it's like they've always been here observing us, and they care so much about us, and they're a part of us. And we just need to learn how to almost like allow it to progress and just happen, and have total trust in the fact that they're here to help us when this happens.
One of the things in the earlier chapters, which kind of cracked me up, was that they were talking about aliens as being angels, and that she had regressed a client who was talking. I think this is how it went. Talking as part of angels, talking on behalf of angels who, as we know, are actually, in quotation marks, aliens. We know that it's Palladians, we know it's Victorians, for example, and that they had roles as being what we would call in, say, Bible scriptures, angels. And so they would come and present themselves to people and give them wisdom, either through dream states or something else. And it was so interesting because even in the book, it was sort of saying, what man would doubt the information from an angel? It was like, know your place. You are man, you are mere mortal. How could you ever think that your mindsets, your egos would know more than an angel? And I just was reading it and thinking, ugh, I probably wouldn't want to see humanity today doubting every single thing possible and using the ego to think that they know more. And so I just thought, how extraordinary.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's just really interesting too that they were sending people information too, and it was all based on free will. So the ones that were willing and wanting the information would receive it. And if you were not ready for it, from the higher information, or just didn't want to use your free will to receive that information, they wouldn't send it to you. So that they would only be able to communicate with those who were ready for it.
Absolutely. And then that reminds me of that chapter where Dolores was working with other people who, some clients of hers, wanted to start being practitioners because they thought, oh, this is fun. This looks interesting. I want to explore this. And so Dolores was saying that this client of hers put someone else under using this really long script. And the Dolores was saying, it doesn't matter what script you use, you can still get access to the subconscious, which is fantastic and true, and we all know that. And but she was saying that the practitioner thought this work was really going to be really easy, and it wasn't until she was actually in her first session that she realized, holy crap, the responsibility of being the practitioner is quite a lot, because it's the questions are really, really, really purposeful. I mean, we've heard me butcher some questions to you, Sally, and your subconscious is like, re-question that, because they're so literal with, their way of questioning things. It's a definite art form or skill set to ask the right questions to get the right information.
Yeah, and also something that was mentioned in that chapter too was, I think Dolores Cannon mentioned it, where she said that the clients see more, or they're given more information, and they're only will pinpoint and answer the specific question being asked. So they won't actually necessarily say more of what they're seeing unless the question is asked in a certain direction. And that's very true, because that happens to me all the time. There's just so much information being shown to me that it's almost like I have to focus on just the question being asked, or I'll just get just really sidetracked.
I find it's really consistent with people who get visuals, because you're sensing it, like so much information visually while you're under that trance relaxation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just like because it's so much, and then you don't want to get distracted either. So they will just they're very literal. So when you ask a question, they are literal and answer the question how it's asked. Yes.
So when we're in that state of relaxation, people think, oh, the conscious can come in and talk on behalf of the subconscious. And you can really hear when the client's consciousness comes in and then the subconscious comes in. And those are the clients that aren't really wanting to let go. They're still wanting to control it, and they are wanting to be the practitioner and be able to have a conversation with an answer on behalf. The egos kind of get away with them a bit. And I mean, that's normal, and that's, obviously something to work there for people. But when the subconscious is fully engaged in, they can read the client's thoughts and be able to answer. And so it must have sounded strange the other day when I was having a telepathic conversation with my subconscious, who was having fun with me. And the thing is that I want to push myself out of the conversation completely, but I still have thoughts and feelings. And so they were sort of saying all sorts of things, which must sound so peculiar for those people who don't understand how these sessions are working. But anyway, so what was very cool in this book was everything. It's such an extraordinary piece of literature. I just feel so frustrated. I think that Dolores put in so much effort and hard work, and people are reading the information as if it is entertainment. And there is so much wisdom and knowledge within it. And I feel like I keep going into a meditative state when I read it. I sort of go into this ponderment, and I sort of think about things in a different sort of perspective. And it's hard for me to focus when I'm reading. This is why I can listen better to the book.
Yeah, I think I'm going to actually start doing that too, because I noticed that I get kind of like, not like doze off, but I get kind of sleepy when I was reading it. And it was really interesting. And I have to take numerous breaks. And I think it's just because like there is like a vibration, like I was feeling it. I was feeling, again, like emotional, which is so, new to me, because that doesn't usually happen to me. And I read a book like that, but it was like this inner, almost like something clicked. I can't explain it, but it was like almost like putting the puzzle pieces together in my head of like, okay, this is why we're here. This is why we're having this earth experience. This is where we came from. And we're not just human. We have not just been human. Usually we've actually had many incarnations elsewhere. And it's just interesting when you're given that information and you feel it, and it feels so correct in your gut.
So when we use our free will to go, right, cool, Dolores, what do you have for us? What information are you going to share in these books? Then that is using our free will to be open to more information. So I think Dolores has said this too. Many people think that her books aren't for them because they go into that. They can't focus. They may read the same chapter again or the same page over and over again. They feel like they can't absorb the information, and they're going into that daydream state. And she's saying that is, you're getting upgraded. You're literally expanding your energy field to be able to hold this information. And so, you're taking some time out for you to be able to expand your consciousness. You're ready for it. You've presented to your teams, look, I'm wanting this knowledge now. I'm wanting to understand more. And so I can't remember which session it was where Dolores was saying that so many people buy her books in excitement, and then they just leave it on their shelves thinking, oh, I'll just get it. another time, I'm just not ready for it yet, or maybe I'm not vibing with it, or, you know, it's all purposeful or whatever. And she's saying that it's almost too high vibrational for many people. And so you almost have to sit with the book and just go, I'm just going to read one chapter.
Yeah, I can totally see that, because it's funny that you mentioned that with the upgrading and the expanding of the mind, because that actually makes a lot of sense, because I was feeling almost like my energy was, can't even explain this. It was so profound. Each chapter, I was like, whoa, this is a lot of information. I'm going to settle into it. I'm going to allow it to just kind of just ponder it a bit, you know? And I just felt this energy, almost like, I can't explain it, but like you have energy around you, but then you feel like it's like going outward further and further. It almost felt like that. I can't really explain it, but that's how it felt. And it's so interesting that you said that. Oh, wow. It's so cool. I don't even know. I felt like I did receive a lot of, yeah, like upgrades. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm trying to have a balance with my working life and my family life and my research life, in terms of, you know, I don't want to treat this information if it's kind of like a hobby. I kind of want to be able to understand, you know, more information to expand my own knowledge. And I know that Dolores has gifted humanity all of these books. And I know that we have choices whether we want to know more. And I feel like all the practitioners, or all people who want to know this information, should be putting in the time and effort to read these books and to understand these books, and not be afraid of the content and the information. And I know that we're all, you know, lots of us aren't necessarily readers anymore. And I know this information is the context is, you know, it's a lot. It is truly a lot, but it clarifies so much as well. And even Dolores, you can feel her concern throughout all of her books. She feels like she's only getting a small portion of the bigger information. She's like, I feel like I'm only scratching the tip of the surface of the true information that is out there. And while she always says this lifetime's significant, how we conduct ourselves, how we help humanity, how we step up for humanity is super important. You know, she was such a curiosity little bug of curiosity, where she just wanted to seek out more information. And I guess it's because of her lifetime in Egypt, where she was part of the record keeping for the Library of Alexandria, and that fire that happened destroyed most of that knowledge, and that really made an impact on her soul. And so she is so afraid that knowledge is going to be taken from people, that she spent, you know, her lifetime of Dolores Cannon trying to regain that hidden knowledge again, so it would be public, because knowledge is power. Knowledge is beyond wisdom. And when we are trying to be coerced into a different agenda that is away from the truth, this is such crucial information.
Yeah. Truth is power, you know, and realizing that there's more than just this life too, and realizing how special we really are. You know, that's self-empowerment right there. And I think that was also, her books were, you know, also doing that, you know, and you could just tell in the sessions how much she cared about her clients too, just as people, and just such a kind woman, just wanted to get the truth out, you know, and wanted to help her clients. There was a session with, you know, someone who was having issues with like their stomach, and come to find out there was many violent deaths that involved, you know, trauma to the stomach, and figuring it out, and then helping the client release that. There's much healing, you know, with these regressions, and it's just a lot, and it's so amazing.
is why I think it's important that people hear full raw sessions. I know people are like, just give me the summaries. I'm not interested in hearing the whole session. But for me, the thought process behind sharing the full session with people is the very first thing you hear is what's going on with that person, and do a body scan. Let everyone know what is happening to that person. Because if the subconscious says, oh, they're full of anxiety, they're all this, whatever, you get to know then where that mindset of that person is, and where they're, if they're blocked or if they're limited in any way. You know, you really want to be able to hear from a client that has got full releasing of a lot of stuff, or that you know that the subconscious is working on it. And I've had clients where you don't get to the body scan sort of to somewhat time of the so you have the regressions, and then you ask the subconscious to come in, and then you ask the subconscious to explain the significance of those life regressions, and then they will talk about it, and then after that you sort of do the body scan, and you can tell that the subconscious won't be able to tell you certain things until the healing has been done. And I can't give a great example of it right now, so I hope I'm explaining myself well. But the subconscious can't disclose certain information until the healing has been done by the client, which was understanding the significance and the purpose of certain things. So then it's not until you get later on in the session where the subconscious has been able to explain the lessons and the significance of certain diseases or body issues for then the client to heal and release it then, and then they're open to more information. So for those people who are listening to summaries of these sessions from other people, please just factor in you don't really know the state of the mind and the limitations and the blocks of those clients. And you don't know the same with the practitioners. And so you may be getting information that is limited because you're not hearing the full information. You're not understanding who's really giving you the information. While it is subconsciouses, they may not be able to give you the full spectrum of the information because A, the questions aren't being asked correctly, or B, the client or the practitioner are not ready to hear the bigger information.
Yeah, totally agree. Because it's like it has to, like you said, you have to like figure out what it is that is causing the body issues, and then learning about it, understanding the higher purpose for it, and then being able to then have the subconscious healing and then the client releasing too. So it's like a process. I definitely agree with that. Yeah, it's just amazing, honestly. It was so informative, every chapter, and I thought it was just so profound, really, about how it discusses like different things with just how close we are with I guess you could call them the aliens, and how they're always really around, just observing us. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I know. They sort of find it funny that we think that, from time to time that we feel so alone. And it's like, what are we, chopped liver? We're literally watching you and supporting you and sending you love. What was really interesting was one of the clients that she couldn't understand why she was carrying so much weight. And it reminded me of, yes, we have these other lifetimes where if we were starved to death, we're so traumatized from that even in this lifetime, we want to overeat. So we would never, ever, ever die that way again because it is so traumatic. And so lots of people go on diets and all sort of bits and pieces, but the subconscious is holding on to that fear of starvation. So we'll overfeed. So you have to, as a practitioner, you have to talk with the subconscious and remind the subconscious, this is a different body. This is a different life. It doesn't need to apply to this client now. They actually are finding it frustrating, but they can't understand why they're carrying so much weight because they don't identify with with that outlook, but it really is coming from another lifetime. And then also those people that can't get pregnant, and they're infertile, they can't conceive, and they're desperate to conceive, and then you ask the subconscious, what's going on there? Why can't they get pregnant? And it's like, oh, because they died in childbirth, so they are so terrified to actually be pregnant because that's an exit point for them. And it's like, subconscious, remember, this is a different lifetime. They want to have it. Is it part of their life contract to have children this lifetime? And then the subconscious will be like, oh, I'll have a look. And then, oh yeah, there is a contract to have a child. And it's like, well, work with us here. So I find that's kind of like the Palladian subconsciouses. They sort of, they're working through trying to factor everything in. There's a lot going on there. And, of course, the subconsciouses do really want to help, but it's like from their perspective, everything's happening all at the same time. And so, of course, especially for those intuitive people, they can sense things from their own personal past or consistent now, which is always confusing when you're trying to understand what's going on for us.
Yeah, that's what it was also. Yeah, that's exactly what was said. They were saying that the subconscious doesn't have a sense of like the time, so it just kind of like assumes that the same thing is going to happen. I believe that's what I read in the book, and that was when Dolores was mentioning that to help them and realize that, oh, well, this happened before, but it doesn't have to continue.
But it's more probably like the unconsciousness of the client afraid to get pregnant, even though consciously they yearn for a baby. There is information that is hidden from them that they can't understand why it's impacting this current life, and it must be so confusing.
Yeah.
Because in the session, when Dolores worked with the subconscious and was like, well, is this going to be a life exit point this lifetime, dying in childbirth? And it's like, no. And so then Dolores is like, so what's the problem then? What's the holdup?
Yeah. And that also reminds me of one too. There was another, there's a chapter where one of the beings, the man regressed to a past, I guess you could say, of a being that was stranded on a snowy mountain on Earth. And because he was glowing and floating, he would have to put on this like heavy fur coat around him. And that actually, in this current lifetime, it turned out that he was holding on to weight because he was unconsciously thinking he had to keep that heavy fur coat around him so that he wouldn't glow and float. And I guess give attention to himself with like the earlier human beings. And so this, I think it was, I want to say it was the subconscious asked, why don't we just give him fur boots or boots to hold him down to the ground instead of floating? And that was like this suggestion, and then we could take off the fur coat. And then that made it where he was able to, I guess, release the layers of weight after that session. It was just so interesting.
Absolutely. And then we've, I think all practitioners have had clients where they do want the sessions and they do want the information, but they're not ready to let go of control and allow and trust the sessions to unfold. They have expectations or whatever. And I know I'm getting so many emails from people wanting to understand why their sessions with certain practitioners didn't work out as they wanted. And so, that's the reason why we had that session, that conscious mind conversation with Sally, with you the other day, was to try and help people understand it, because it's like, just listen to that session. I don't know if it fully explained it to everyone's needs, but I'm certainly not, this should be, if you have these kind of questions, I'm trying to help people as much as I can, but this is something you should be asking your practitioner, and they should be, you should be having this conversation and dialogue with them ultimately, so, I want to try and help people as much as possible. And I wish that there was great support online and communities online where people could understand what to expect from these sessions. I mean, we know that we've got a focus support group of over 1,000 people that are discussing the shift and the new earth and the old earth and the concepts from sessions. And so we know that that's a helpful support group to be able to have conversations about the subject matter, but that's not the focus group for why does my personal sessions not work? What's my inner work? What's happening here? Why do I have ascension symptoms? Like, you know, we want to have a focused, dedicated group, and we're very lucky that we do have people who are open to sharing their thoughts and opinions on how it's going for them, understanding this information. And you know, like I was just thinking, it's so incredible that, you know, as Dolores was writing, so many people back then were still nervous about sharing their thoughts about aliens and what if they were true. And if they'd had a personal experience or a dream or half woke up knowing that they were part of an abduction or something like that. I mean, it's been so isolating for them to know this information, have this personal experience, almost puts you a social outcast, because no one wants to believe you or believe what's, you know, outside of the main narrative. And, you know, Dolores was having so many people flock to her because they knew she would listen to them. They would know that they could share their really concerning, disorientating experiences and not be made fun of and not be called crazy. And so she had such a compassionate heart for everyone, and she was so open-minded and so curious that she would never assume she knew everything. She would always ask for more information. And I think this is where a lot of practitioners are fumbled, because they assume they know certain information, and so they don't ask beyond that. And we shouldn't be certain for anything, really. We should be always asking the high dimensional beings all the information that we can in every which way, and not be afraid, and seriously drop the ego and drop the assumptions that we know certain things. Because if we had done that, we would just be like, yay, the shift's just a state of mind, jazz hands, I'm already on the new earth, living my best life.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, it also just shows too that there is like, when you have a practitioner that is willing to do that and be open-minded and allow the client to ask any questions that they want their subconscious to answer, and then just allow the information to come through, it just, I feel like as a client, you know, you just feel more comfortable with the practitioner, and there's a rapport built, and there's a level of trust, you know, needed in these sessions when you do them, because it's, you know, it's a lot of information, I would say, for everyone involved. And Dolores Cannon had a really amazing way of doing that. And yeah, it was because she was open-minded, and yeah, because she didn't think she knew everything. She was always open to new information, no matter how different it was or strange. And that's why she was able to access that higher information. And it's so important for that. And I feel like that's what's needed in these sessions. And that's why I think, Joe, get the ability to receive that information too, because of that.
They started saying to me in sessions that they wanted this information out publicly, and you know, they were very clear on what they wanted. You know, they didn't want me to summarize it and transcribe it and, you know, do a little reading from my notes and trying to mansplain it to everyone. They were very firm. Let the session speak for themselves. And, you know, it was, you know, they couldn't have been any more clearer. And I have just accepted what they've asked from me. And I certainly am not going to double question the significance or purpose for what they want. I trust that they can see much more perspective than I can, and I don't want to be part of the problem. I don't want to be, you know, an issue for them. I want to be a good girl and get my stars, my gold stars. And of course, it's a joke, but you know, I know that I'm very much a 3D person, and I want to be of service, and it's not my information. I don't have I don't have the rights to mansplain the information and own it and try to sell it. And this is a frustrating thing for Dolores, is that, again, people are trying to hide the information from those who are seeking it. And money shouldn't be a factor. And we know that everyone needs to pay their bills, but are we really living beyond our means? Can we humble ourselves and not live in mansions, for example, and still be of service to humanity? I think a lot of people know that, materialism doesn't feed our souls, but being a true humanitarian does. And so being honest with people and trying to support people as much as possible is part of being of service.
Yeah. And I just can't even explain enough how important it is to have the truth right now, because there's so much disinformation, and it's really distracting. It's distracting, confusing, and we have been lied to we've been lied to since like the beginning of time, I feel like. And it's just like, now's the time to step up, everybody. Really, really embrace the truth. There's nothing more important than the truth, I feel like, and to share it,
I think people lie because they are afraid of the truth, and
Yeah.
what do we know about fear? It's not good. Face our fears and overcome them, because it's limiting us. And when we lie to ourselves and to others, we're really doing them a disservice. And I have tapped into many people's consciousnesses when everyone is publicly aware of some people who've been lying and being deceitful. And it's not a judgment, because this is how they literally feel. They feel ashamed of themselves, embarrassed, because they realize not only did now they have to be honest with themselves, but everyone knows. And I just, this is why I'm like a diligent, loyal person to the higher beings, because I'm like, I do not want to be embarrassed at all. I want to be knowing that I have done everything that you've ever said to me. And, I'm truly of service that way. And of course, there's been some things where what they've asked from me to do, I've had to take some time to be able to process it and to get there. But I would not. They did tell me to try and take off the comments of YouTube like quite a bit before I did it, because I thought, well, maybe I could just still help. And then I realized that people weren't wanting to listen to the sessions and grow from the sessions. People were just wanting quick, simple answers. And the challenge is this concepts and these topics and the details aren't just a quick, simple answer. It's so detailed and so complex. And every location around the world is going to be experiencing different parts of shifts and things like that. And so you can't just say open-handedly, it's going to be this date and this for you and blah, 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 blah. It's all really unique. And I can't express that enough. This is why it's so important to have your own sessions.
And also, I just thought of something too, with the sessions, when you actually listen to them, there's healing vibrations coming off them. And it's like when someone in the session, the client themselves, when they actually experience what's going on with their previous lifetimes, future lifetimes now, and then they're healing from it, the audience actually benefits as well.
I listened to someone, I read about someone yesterday saying that she was listening to one of the sessions and had an eye mask on. She fell asleep and her husband woke her up and she'd been crying. And this is making me, this is weird. Okay, so I'm just going to breathe through this. So I don't know even if you know this, Sally, but so she was asleep and she listened to one of the sessions, and her husband woke her up crying, and she, like, her whole face mask was all full of tears. And when she came to being awoken, she could hear me crying in a session. And it was probably quite disorientating to wake up and be like, what's happened to my body? I'm having a physical reaction to it. And of course, the session that she was listening to was a very, very, very emotional one. And I just was thinking, oh my gosh, that poor thing. Like, first of all, I was like, oh no, I don't want this for anyone. I don't want anyone listening to these sessions and crying. That's the worst thing ever. And then I just thought, no, it's not the worst thing ever. So, stop my reaction now, just think about this. And I just felt, first of all, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm responsible for her crying. It's like, no, I'm not responsible for her crying. So put that aside. So what else is there? And it's like, so she's in this state of, she's sleeping, she's hearing this emotion, and it was old earth content. And I think she was feeling into the density of being confused on the old earth, and mourning for Gaia, mourning for humanity, and just all of those emotions. And I just thought, she's processing this, and the body, she's already feeling and learning and experiencing that. And as we know from your session, Sally, you having to overcome shifting early and not being on old earth, and you got to that neutral of your husband's going one place, your daughter's going another place, you're going somewhere else. When you got to overcome and accept that, and like it was impressive speed, when you accepted what your intuition already was, which then was confirmed in sessions, then they were like, now you can be of service to old earth, because you are going to be of service. You're going to be more balanced and neutral, being there, and still being able to hold that higher frequency for those who are struggling with that density. And so part of me was wondering, for this woman who had been crying sleeping, was, I'm going to question, it's not actually none of my business, so I probably shouldn't be trying to feel into what's going on there for her. But it was like, did she just experience that, and therefore she doesn't actually need to physically live that, because she's already learned those lessons to overcome it? It probably still would be weirdly dense on her, and she's still probably processing the whole session. But could it be fair to say she's learned from those experiences, and now she doesn't necessarily need to live them?
Yes. And that is what, bingo. And that is exactly why that is so important for people to be listening to the sessions, because you can actually learn the lessons beforehand, like you said, and not have to physically experience it.
Yeah. And it's sort of like, learn the information now, go through the range of emotions: shock, denial, fear, crying, perspective, overcome it all now. And so then you can, support those on that journey who are going to be. This is why we got given the information about the laser, I believe, is for us to be able to understand the purpose of it and not lose our heads. And from this book, getting back to the book, because this is book club time, was that future, the future, what was it called? The future being talks to now. And so it was, I feel like, I'll have to read that book, that chapter again, but I truly feel, when I was listening to it and experiencing it just yesterday, was that this is definitely the timeline we're in now. That they go, and it's a barren planet, and there's buildings there, but there is no one here. And so it's like, there was problems, and so they realized, oh, that's probably not the best way for humanity. And so they came back to be able to help humanity have a better experience, and not such a traumatic one. And so we know that, gosh, we've asked so many times about the laser, and can we stop it, and can we choose option B, subconscious, because it was a lot, any way around it. And so, we have been told very firmly by many clients, subconsciouses and many different collectives. So remember, that's also important when you're trying to put all the puzzle pieces to these sessions together, understanding what collectives are talking, because they are, their own groups. So the Palladian group is one group and the Arcturians are another group. Yes, they do work together, absolutely. But the Arcturian collectives are wanting different experiences for their 3D counterparts. And it's the same for the Palladians and all the other collectives. And so you must be able to hear and know what collective is speaking before you put yourself in that position, before you assume that information is for you and your collective. Intuitively, many people get a sense of who they are when they hear certain subconsciouses. And many people will know that certain clients that I have and share their personal sessions with, they identify so deeply with them and they don't understand why. But, when they have their own sessions, they understand, and not sessions through me, but, sessions through other practitioners, because there's thousands and thousands of practitioners out there in all different formats. So, I'm certainly not hustling for any extra clients at all, but, reminding you all that there is many practitioners out there. And so it just makes sense for when people understand who the clients are, what their collectives are, what their, who their soul families are, because potentially you're listening to a soul family member sharing their experiences, and this is why they feel extraordinarily familiar to you.
Yeah. And also in that chapter that you're mentioning, it was interesting because they were talking about walk-ins were coming onto Earth to raise the vibration and to let the future Earth individuals know what's going to happen, that something was going to happen to Earth, and that they're going to have to evacuate the planet. And it was like, whoa, okay. It's like, this is happening now. It's right there in the book. And this book was published, what, 1996?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What?
And Dolores was sort of saying in the book that people don't want change. They don't want to learn new things. And so they'll dismiss any content of new information, like, say, for example, extraterrestrials, they would dismiss it. And, we've got so much information more than just, hey, I think there's more species out there. So it's a lot. I'm not going to try and pretend that these sessions and the information isn't a lot. It's extraordinarily fascinating. It's so much more intriguing than, say, Desperate Housewives of Atlanta or something. Like it's really, it's really so self-feeding. It's just reassuring. It's reminding. I think we're being able to remind ourselves of who we are. And of course, we don't have to know all this information because we already do know it. But to be able to help assist us out of our density and our 3D mindsets, this information is the key to being able to help. I'm sure there's lots of other books out there that people fully resonate with, but it's not Dolores's ego speaking. She does share her opinions and her findings. She is the reporter. And she's the recorder and the reporter of this information. And I feel like part of her is like, I did so much work and shared so much knowledge and wisdom, and people are still choosing to ignore it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a ripple effect, honestly. I
Yes.
feel like that if one person literally can hear the sessions or read her books, I feel like they vibrate higher, and then I feel like they affect the people around them, even the ones who haven't read the books or watched the session. So I feel like there's this rippling out effect.
I feel like, isn't it some information that gets added into, like, say, the collective, everyone grows from it?
Yeah. Yep. Just like that.
Love it. So then therefore, those people who are listening to the sessions, they're taking one for the team for all of their collectives and raising their conscious collective knowledge, right? So that's, you know, that's important. So many clients, you know, love their lives and they're just curious about learning more, and they come in for sessions, and then they discover that they were like not having tantrums, but kind of like, no, I don't want to go to Earth. Yuck, horrible, so dense, yucky, you know, like, and it's so funny because they're like, they don't identify with having that kind of attitude and behavior. Like, obviously I'm dramatizing it for the giggles, but it's so extraordinary when they go to the life where they are before they've come here. And it's like, oh my gosh, I really didn't want to come here. And then they sort of feel proud of themselves because they're like, I'm actually doing okay. Like, I'm really surprised that the information was me like kicking and screaming, I don't want to do it, but having to do it for the greater good of humanity. And that they're like, whoa, my life actually isn't that like horrendous. I'm actually doing good considering the situation. And I think that yeah, it's always interesting what we hear in sessions and learn. And I love that you know, my clients can share with me what they are, because as you said before, you know, what you hear in sessions, the words are just one aspect of the feelings and the other senses that go with it. And of course, Sally's extraordinary because she's one of those, not rare, but I think it's kind of, it's a smaller number that can visually see session information versus many. It's just too distracting. I think it's too hard, and I think you do a really good job of being able to see everything. And but it's so good because in the session, in the book, I'm getting back to the book, she said that there was that man who was sort of reluctant to do the sessions, and just keeps wanting her to know he's making it all up, and that's nonsense, and it's you know, he's not believing the information. And then it came out in cartoon form, and she's like, when you're reluctant to trust the information, they will simplify it down so it's a soft version. Oh, cartoons, they're not horrific, they're positive, and you know, the softer information. And so they show people the significance of information that they need to hear through a translation of cartoons.
Yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense because it's like, well, like, am I ready or not to see this? I personally have not ever seen a cartoon. I've always only seen from the very second I started one of the sessions, exactly how it looked naturally. So with the cartoons, like I wasn't like aware that you actually, some clients do see that, which makes sense. It's almost like a buffer, you know, like trying to like get used to it, you know?
Yes. So, and this is what Dolores says, that, you know, usually people, the first sort of session, you know, that it's like they're getting comfortable with sharing the senses. And so we'll start off being cartoony to just kind of, oh yeah, it's not real, don't worry about it, just go with it. Because then if they sense it's too real, like I have another practitioner, she gets visuals, and she sort of wants to deny the information. She's still not kind of ready. Like, she feels like she's got like a devil and an angel on her shoulders. She says this, and she's like, the devil is saying, it's all bullshit, don't believe it, we're staying here, it's not, you know, and that's really her ego, and she loves her life, so of course she doesn't want it to be true. And then there's this angel on her shoulder that is like, you know, this information is true, you know, the content is real, you know. And so she kind of like has to figure with her mindset, what is she going to feed today, you know? And she's like saying it's really disorientating for her because when she hears the sessions, the angel on her shoulder is like, we told you, trust this, accept it's going to be okay, it's all going to be okay. And so she's like, feels good when she listens to the sessions, and then as soon as the session ends, then that devil is like, it's nonsense, go and do your dishes, go and hang out with the kids, do your 3D job, that's the real life, you know. And she's a practitioner, and so when she goes into sessions and she sees things, she dismisses it and doesn't want to go with the flow of the sessions, because when you have undeniable experiences like full-on visuals, then you've got to say goodbye to that little devil, that's that doubter, and then fully go into the acceptance stage. And what is accepting this information? That the life that we have right now is going to completely change. We're going to completely change. And it's all for the good, it's all for better. But when we can't see that good, we can't see that better, and we can't feel into the life that we're going to have after the 3D, we all are reluctant and want to feed that little devil that gives us doubt. So then we can just focus on the 3D.
Yeah. Yeah. And I understand doubt can be, I mean, it can be a healthy reaction. I can understand how people can be doubtful because they're like, well, I don't see anything changing, like nothing's happened yet, you know? And it's kind of like one of those things where like, where's the proof, you know? Because people always want the physical, tangible proof, right? But then there's that knowing where the person is like in their gut, they know it to be true. And that scares them. So
like,
I totally get it.
but people that are saying nothing's changing, it's like, well, we haven't always had 50 active volcanoes on this planet. We haven't had all this wild, crazy weather. Things are changing. You can say, oh, it's just global warming, or you can make justification and excuses for these changes if you need to. But it's all around us. The proof is truly all around us. Depends on whether we need it or not. And I certainly don't judge if people are doubting. I think it's natural process. I would just ask people to just drop the fear. It's fine for you to doubt, that's cool, but don't then drop down into fear, because then you're lowering your own frequency vibration, and that is not good for anyone. And so doubt it and dismiss it, cool, I'm fine with that, but don't go into don't go into fear with it. I think almost being in doubt is kind of a nice neutral, because then you can just dismiss it and find the joy in the 3D. And I love that. But nothing should be making you afraid. And Dolores says this, and it's really good common sense. When you are vulnerable and afraid, that's when things can get you. Because you've bottomed out your frequency vibration so low that then you are open to anything. Not trying to scare you. You should be afraid of being afraid. Let's just say that.
Yeah. And then also too, when you lower your vibration, you do affect people around you as well, just the same as when you raise your vibration. So just look at it like I can help others by helping myself, because we're all in this together. We really are. And we should really look at each other like family. We're all, we're all going to be experiencing this. And just hold yourselves more accountable with, what you're thinking, what you're ingesting, what movies you're watching right now. I would definitely suggest maybe stay away from things that are frightening to you, unless it brings you joy, of course. But just be aware of where you're at and what you're feeding yourself mentally and emotionally.
You've been saying this session recently, it's okay for you to feel fear, but not hold on to it. Oh, acknowledge this is fear. This is what fear feels like. So then you can remind yourself, okay, yeah, it's not pleasant, and you do get panicky, but then building yourself back out of fear, digging yourself up higher and empowering yourself out of fear is fantastic, because then when you do see someone who is in fear, you have more compassion, you have more sympathy, you understand. You're not just like, oh, for goodness sake, just pull your socks up. You know how real it is. And it's they don't realize when they're in fear that this is a choice that they're making. And so, they've said so many times, it's a choice. You choose to feel how you feel and own that. And if you want to be in fear, you're making that choice, that active choice to be in fear. And so sometimes when you're in fear, you don't like to be told that, well, why are you doing this to yourself? So it's it's a delicate dance of love and support, and not being frustrated with them, because fear is so real. And not only is it real, it's addictive, because then you don't have to be responsible for anything else, because you're just in a big panic. So if you're feeling like the world is so it just looks like it's doom, and all these mandates and all of this, the pollution and the climate change and chemtrails and 5G. Like, if you're feeling like all of that is, your responsibility to fix, and you just don't know how to even like navigate through it, you go and bottom out completely in fear. And then it's kind of a nice place to be for some people, because then they don't have to find solutions. No one can find solutions to all those things I just mentioned, except solutions of how to balance your mindset and be neutral with it, and accept that everything is being watched by all of our support teams and all of the high dimensional beings who are supporting this little bit left of this planet as we know it.
Yeah. And it's good too. It's almost like deciding, like, when you wake up every day, because every day is a new day when you wake up. How do I want my day to be? How do I want to feel? And it's a choice. You do have free will. You can decide, obviously. It's up to you. But it's like, how is it going to make you feel? And it's good to it is good to know the difference when you feel the fear, to realize, hey, I'm in fear now, I need to get out of it. And yeah, it's definitely empowering, and it's definitely something that I've been practicing for so long. And after hearing the sessions, it just really raised my vibration, and it really made me think about what I was doing, and um, how how much we are loved, and how much the higher beings are definitely watching over this entire process. They're aware of everything. They're already aware of they're already like in the future in a way. So everyone's looked after, everyone's cared for, everyone's protected and loved. And yeah, just keep just finding your joy every day. That's what I would definitely say. Keep finding your joy, and just enjoying this 3D life that we have.
Absolutely. And it is very enjoyable when you know what your responsibilities are. And, we can worry about everything. And that's not really our responsibility, is it? I mean, yes, we can be very aware of certain things that need to play out to help awaken humanity. It's just, we're so much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. And when we want to hold on to that density and fear, boy, can everyone else around us feel that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very true.
I highly recommend everyone finding a copy of Legacy from the Stars. And I know that Dolores would also be very appreciative of those who are wanting the bigger perspective. And I mean, she's extraordinary, and it is so hard. While she loved her life being Dolores, she also had to overcome a lot of critics and a lot of nastiness from humans, but she also got to see a lot of beauty and a lot of healing and a lot of growth. And that's, she loved her life. She definitely loved her life. And I think what we have experienced from, I certainly have experienced it from my subconscious, and I know Sally has too. They're kind of over it now. They're really frustrated that we're not all collectively coming together and growing and being more responsible and more mature with our responsibilities of our energy. And when we keep choosing fear or lower emotions and holding on to that, this is actually causing, delays. And we want to support everyone. and love everyone and encourage and inspire everyone. And I know that feels like a lot of responsibility. But it's truly those people that you are in contact with or have connections with, and sharing that you are in joy, sharing that you are trusting that good things are coming. That's not too hard to share, just those positive sort of aspects to one's perspective.
Yeah. And also just I think just looking at every day and people around you with gratitude. I mean, with the 3D, there's so much distraction. So we tend to forget what's important, what's truly important. And I feel like it's good to be able to just, turn to like your friends and families and just be like, you're so, thank you for, being there for me. Just, I love you, just like the little things that we don't necessarily think to do, but we should, and like I would love to just go out in nature more and have gratitude for Earth.
Absolutely. And even if we can't physically get out into nature, we can easily go in our mind's eye and project love and appreciation and gratitude to all. It's so easy to do it, but we somehow sort of seem to gobble up all our days and all our hours doing something else. And so that's part of being responsible for our energy and our mindsets and using our great power of love, because we have truly done so much work of our own inner work that our capacity of love is huge, huge, huge. And isn't that a fantastic thing to be able to give and help humanity with, is projecting out our love and acceptance and unconditional and deeply compassionate love to everyone who is still knee deep in the third dimensional of emotions. We don't need to judge them at all. They're judging themselves. They're feeling overwhelmed themselves. We can just love them and share that frequency. And I mean, that's so easy and gives you that warmth of being of service. That's what is so addictive, that I love, feeling of being of service and doing the best I can. So many people ask me, I don't think I'm being of service enough. I don't think I'm helping humanity. What can I do? It's never a simple answer, but the reality is every single one can do so much more than we are, including myself. I can say that I could be doing so much more for humanity. Absolutely, I could be. And so there is never I think I've done my quota, or I've done my 3 hours of humanitarian work this week. No, my friends, no, 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 no. It is, we all can be doing much more. And for those people who are never questioning if they are, how they are being of service, well, then I think, that screams a bigger problem. Because ultimately, we can all be doing so much more. And when we do more, we get more of that. It's like they reward us. The more higher frequency energy we pour onto this planet with love, the more we get. And so many people think that there is like this limited amount of love. And so they keep it to themselves and they're afraid to share and they don't want anyone to take it from them. And it doesn't quite work like that, but that is really showing that they had lack of love truly as a child. And so they are not sharing, and so, a very balanced child can share because they know that, there's endless amounts of toys and that everyone needs to take turns and all that sort of stuff. So see what you're doing with love. Are you saving it and not sharing it? Or are you trying to seek it out from other people? Like, how are you using love and that frequency is a really good thing for people to just have a little think about.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Good point. And in the book too, she was mentioning that um it was with the pets. When you profoundly love your animals, like your pets, you can actually help them um, evolve with the love vibration, which I found so cool.
Well, I feel like when I've asked, everyone's asked about their pets, who love their pets. The pet focused, they identify their pets as family, and some of their family is distant strangers, and that's fine. And so, when we ask, it always seems to be the answer is what they wanted, why they have those pets in this lifetime is to be able to learn unconditional love, not only receive it, but to give it. And it is a really beautiful thing, the relationships and the life contracts that people have with their pets. And so, yeah, I can totally see that resonating. I mean, all of Dolores's information resonates, even the information that's in the old timelines. I can fully understand why and how that all needed to fold out. And so I think this is what people get confused with, especially the Nostradamus stuff. They want to dismiss her whole work because the Nostradamus stuff didn't pan out. And we say, thank goodness it didn't pan out. It wasn't quite the horrible timeline, and while the players are still playing their roles to awaken humanity, like the Antichrist and all that sort of stuff, it's still, it still needs to happen. It's at different layers, and it's different people, but it's still the same lessons that humanity needs to awaken to itself. So I mean, it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. I can't wait for people to dive into her books more, and be able to use this. And please remind yourself, and this is what Dolores is saying, is that she was growing with the work, and so she admits freely that because of where she was at, some of the information, she didn't see the bigger significance of what they were trying to tell her then. And so, as when she did her life review, she went through every single session and every single person she was supposed to have sessions with, and she's already gone through their Akashic records and figured out who they were and what information, and she's hilariously funny and sweet and so still diligent and so curious still. And I just find her responsibility of her own actions is beautiful. She knew she needed more information, but she knew she had to be ready for that information and process it. And she still felt like they were kind of breadcrumbing her. And she still had her 3D responsibilities. She still had children, all that fun stuff as well. So, sorry, favorite subject matter. So I'll stop now. But each chapter could have hours of conversation because it's just so extraordinary. And these little books are deceptive because they have got worlds of information and knowledge.
Yeah. And extremely profound, and somehow the puzzle pieces start to click in your head when you're reading it. It's like, wow, why didn't I read this earlier? It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. All divine timing. We can't be frustrated with what we haven't done yet. Just be celebrating what we're doing now, I think.
Yep.
Okay.
Very true.
Well, for everyone still listening, I love you. I know you're taking your responsibilities really seriously, and I know you're profoundly growing along with us all. And I want to celebrate us as a collective who are really here being of service. It's not easy. Of course, it's not easy. If it was easy, we would have shifted by now. So, give yourselves a pat on the back for still being diligent and wanting to be of profound service for humanity. Gold stars for everybody.
Yay.
Okay, thank you so much.